Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. And my homage to our teacher, Pingwat Lokoswami Wahanse. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear meritorious devotees, you are gathered here today to listen to a Dhamma sermon. Today I'm going to bring you lovely Dhamma points from one of the books that we have published. This belongs to our Lokoswami Nansi, and there is a topic to this book, and if I translate that into English, it would come something like, let's select the true leadership. So we are going to select a true leadership. We are going to learn how to select a leadership. Leadership here, in a sense, we need a leader to guide us towards heaven and enlightenment. So, now, why are we here gathered today? The reason we are here is because we are here to correct ourselves. Why do we need to correct ourselves? Because we have problems in our lives. Problems in a sense, we have weaknesses in our lives. So if we can eradicate or destroy these weaknesses, then we would be able to correct ourselves. That is why we are here today. People listen to Dhamma to correct themselves. We correct ourselves, we try to correct ourselves because we have weaknesses. Otherwise, if we are free of weaknesses, then we do not need a Dhamma to listen. That means we are perfect. But that is not the case. We have weaknesses. So what are these weaknesses that we have? The first one is that we get angry. Isn't it true that all of us, we get angry? We quickly get angry. And it is possible for another person to make us angry. Now, what's the reason behind this? Why do we get angry quickly? The reason behind this is that we have a mind that gets angry quickly. So the nature of the mind is that it gets angry quickly. And if we develop that anger, if we just let it remain the way it is, if we leave it without destroying it, what would happen is that it would turn or transform itself into a hatred. So anger to a hatred, and if that happens, if anger becomes hatred, then it wouldn't be of benefit to us. So because of that hatred, when we start to seek revenge, both ways, to ourselves and to others, it would not be beneficial. So from this, it is clear that anger is something that is not worthwhile. It is a weakness. It is a problem that we have. So the first problem or the weakness that we have is anger. So when we get angry, it turns itself to hatred. And when we have hatred in our minds, what we do is that we seek revenge. People who seek revenge, sometimes they scold, sometimes they kill human beings. So that means it is not good. Now, if someone kills another person, at the moment he would think that the moment he's doing that bad act, he will think that he's doing a good thing, but after he has done that demerit, he will regret. So the killer will regret, and the person who died, his life is over. So it is clear that this anger is not beneficial to us and to others as well. See, the first problem that we have, the weakness, is anger. Then the second problem we have is lust or desire. Now, we have desire for many things. Now, when we watch TV and when we sometimes when we read certain newspapers, desires that weren't there before in our mind arise. That is when we watch TV and listen to radio, or when we read newspapers, that happens. So, because of this desire, people commit unbelievable amounts of demerit, acts of demerit they commit. They hurt each other without developing themselves. They kind of destroy their lives. And they lose moral shame and moral fear completely. They lose it completely. That is because they have desire. When we become enslaved to desire, we forget where we are. And we forget about demerits and about acts of merit. And our belief in merit and demerit will be vanished. Now, as Buddhists, we know that there are results of acts of merit and there are results of acts of demerit. So the person who has desire, he will commit bad acts of demerit because of desire. Now, when we have desire in our mind, we become blind. It is as if we are blind when we have desire in our mind. So, because of this desire, we have a life full of problems. We have a life full of problems. The first one, can you remember the first weakness that we had? The first weakness that we had was hatred, anger or hatred. Then the second problem we have is desire. And the third is delusion. Now, isn't it possible for others to deceive us? We are deceived by people in this world. If that is because we don't have the ability to understand what is correct and what is incorrect. But if someone teaches us the truth correctly, and if we have the ability to understand what's the correct thing and the wrong thing, then we will be able to understand the correct thing, and that means no one in this world will be able to fool us, since we know the truth. So the problem we have when it comes to being deceived is that we do not know what is the truth and what is falsehood. As long as we have these three weaknesses, it is not possible to live a life full of content. No matter how hard we try to be happy, that happiness will not be there. If we have hatred, lust or desire, and delusion in our minds, that means we have a life full of sorrow. And we do not have happiness, we don't have any content in this life. So, being a person who has these three weaknesses, and if we go and select a leader who has the same weaknesses, then we will be in deep trouble, because we have the weaknesses that we have are present in our leader. So then there is a problem. So he would not be able to teach us the way to eradicate these three problems or weaknesses that we have, because he's having the same problems himself. So what we need here, now, can you remember the topic of this book, selecting the true leadership? So when we are considering a leader, a true leadership, that leadership should not have these three weaknesses: hatred, lust, and delusion. So do we know a person who hasn't got these three problems or weaknesses? We do know him. There was a person by the name of Siddhartha Gautama. When he was 29 years of age, he left home and went in search for the truth. He wanted to cleanse his mind. He went into the deep woods, deep into the forests, and did many austerities. Then, without a help of a teacher, he understood the truth. He became liberated. He liberated himself from this long journey of samsara. And he eradicated all defilements. The moment he eradicated all defilements, the weaknesses that we discussed a short while ago were eradicated. Hatred was eradicated, lust was eradicated, and delusion was eradicated. He was enlightened. So we know a person, his name is Siddhartha Gautama, and we know that he doesn't have these weaknesses, so he is proper. He is the person. We should make him our leader. So, how did we make him our leader? By saying Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, we went for refuge to the Buddha. We took the refuge under the Buddha. The thing that we have to remember here is that there is no point of becoming Buddhists just because our parents are Buddhists. There is no point at all. We have to take refuge under the Buddha with wise consideration, with the proper understanding, by examining who he is. Now, people in this world, they selected their leaders, but they had these three weaknesses: hatred, delusion, and lust. But our Lord Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, he hasn't got these three weaknesses. We need a leadership we need a leader who is possible to stop our tears. Stop our tears in a sense. Now, the Buddha didn't look at the people who were crying, and he didn't plunge into the set of people who were crying, and he didn't cry with the people who were crying. He didn't approve crying. He didn't accept crying. Instead of crying, he went to the people who were crying, and he addressed them. He said, "Hold on a second. Wait for a moment. Do not cry. See the reason behind your tears. Eradicate that reason, and you will have no more tears," he said. So, that is the correct way of wiping out the tears of a man. Now, imagine a monk, there is a set of people who are crying, let's say because of a bereavement, someone has died, a loved one, and people are gathered, there is an assembly, everyone is crying. Now, if a monk goes in the middle of that crowd, and if he starts crying, then the people who are crying will think, look, even this monk is crying. Why should we stop? And they will keep on crying. They will keep on shedding tears. So that is not the proper way to solve that problem. The proper way to solve that problem is to enlighten the people with the reason, so that they can see the reason, eradicate that reason, and stop tears forever. So we do not need a leader who is weak in a sense. If our leader plunges into that crying, and if he cries, he would not be able to stop the tears that we shed. So we need a leader who doesn't cry. Our Lord Buddha is a person who doesn't cry. What he does is that he shows the reason, and he asks us to identify the reason and eradicate that reason, so that we will have no more tears in our lives ahead. So, and when it comes to selecting leadership or selecting a leader, our leader should have that unique quality in a sense. We should be able to look up to him. And now, if he, if the leader in front of a problem, if he flees, and if he becomes afraid in front of a problem, if it's not possible for him to face the problem with energy and confidence, if he flees in front of a problem, then that leadership is a poor one. So the person who follows that kind of a leadership will be in trouble. So we need a leader who is capable enough to face a problem. He should not become afraid in front of the problem, and she should not flee in front of the problem. Now, in front of the truthful person, falsehood is defeated. The falsehood flees. So, just like that, in front of the Buddha, our Lord Buddha, the falsehood was defeated. Because of his truthfulness, he was undefeated. The Buddha had that power of truthfulness. Now, if people have certain abilities, and if they're talented in certain things, they use that talent, they use their abilities they don't use it for their benefit. They commit acts of demerit. Now, the Buddha is not someone like that. The leader we are selecting, he should have a mind that is pure. So, can you remember the topic of this book? Selecting the true leadership. So when we are selecting a true leader, it should be done with wise consideration. When we select the Buddha as our leader, we recollect this first quality, that is arahant. That means he hasn't got these weaknesses that we discussed a short while ago. That is hatred, lust, and delusion. So when we recollect the qualities of the Buddha, the first quality that we recollect is arahant. We say, Itipiso Bhagava Araham. Itipiso means so and so is he. the Buddha is called Arham because of this reason and because of this reason. So there are many reasons, attributes under the great quality of Arham. So that when we recollect the qualities of the Buddha, we recollect the first quality here, that is Arhang. Arhang means he eradicated all defilements. Basically, he eradicated the first three defilements, the root causes, that is lust, hatred, and delusion. So our leader, now we are selecting a true leadership. Now it is clear, apparent from this description, the things that we have discussed here, that our leader, that means our Lord Buddha, has this quality, Arhang. Arhang means he hasn't got these three weaknesses. Now, if someone says this, here is my doctrine, I learned it from that person. So if he says so, he's not a leader. He's just a disciple of another teacher. So his teacher should be more prominent than the disciple. But the Buddha is not someone like that. The Buddha, without the help of a teacher, he understood everything. He is his own teacher. He developed his mind and understood everything in this world. And it has been more than 2,500 years since his final passing away. But from that time up to now, we have not seen any person like the Buddha. A person who has understood everything. Even though people appear saying that they have understood everything, it is not the truth. So, from that time until now, since there hasn't been a person who has understood everything, and it is our Lord Buddha, he is the one and only person who has understood everything. He has a unique name. He is called Sambuddha. Now the knowledge that the Buddha had is amazing. Now, our scope, the things that we see, is limited. Now, we can't see everything. We haven't understood everything. But the Buddha saw everything. He understood everything. Now, when we hear the word loka, or the world, what are the things that come into our mind? A picture of this great earth, the blue planet, sometimes the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Neptune, certain pictures of certain planets come into our mind. So, but the Buddha's knowledge is something different compared to our small knowledge. Now, our Buddha, he has a unique name. His name is Gautama the Buddha. But no one in this world knew that there were many Buddhas before our Buddha. Now we know that there was a Buddha named Kassapa. There was a Buddha named Sikhi, Wesabu, Konagamana. We know this because he told us about the history. Now if we take this great earth, this blue planet that we live in, it evolves and changes itself. It dissolves, it changes itself. Our knowledge of the history is limited, but the Buddha had a capability to see beyond everything. He could see not just one or two lives back. He could see hundreds, thousands of years back. He saw not just 100,000, he saw millions of billions, eons of eons lives. So he had that capability. Because of his capability, that unique ability, we got to know that there were many Buddhas even before him. Now, it is not possible to judge a Buddha. It's not possible to measure a Buddha's abilities. One day, the Buddha told Bhante Ananda, his chief attendant, this. Ananda, many eons ago, there lived a Buddha by the name of Sikhi, and he had a chief disciple named Abhibu. Abhibu was able to speak to beings in other planets, he said. When that was told, Bhante Ananda became so excited, and he asked the Buddha, Bhante, if it possible for a disciple to speak to human beings or beings in other planets, to how many worlds is it possible for you to speak to? And the Buddha replied saying, Ananda, it is not possible to measure the ability of a Buddha. And that was his simple answer to that question. Bhante Ananda kept on insisting. He asked the Buddha, Bhante, please do tell me, to how many beings outside this world can you speak to? 3 times he insisted, and the 4th time the Buddha said, then please do listen carefully. So the Buddha said, Ananda, the world system that we live in, and this is called a world system, it's called Lokadhatu, a world system that we live in is lighted by the sun and the moon. So one world system has got one sun and a moon. There are 1,000 earths like this, or world systems like this, he said. And that is called a Chulanika Ekasahasi Sahasi Chulanika Lokadhatu. Sahasi in Pali means 1,000. Chulanika, you can translate it into minor. So this minor cluster has how many world systems like the one we are living in? 1,000. It has got 1,000 world systems in that cluster. So that first cluster is called Sahasi Chulanika Lokadhatu. So this is becoming much more and more interesting. We have come to the end of the first session. So you will be able to learn more about the world systems and about the Buddha's, one of the Buddha's great qualities in our next session, the second session. So we have come to the end of the first session. So far we have listened pretty interesting points, Dhamma points, and we have, by listening to these Dhamma points, we have gained much merit. So by the merits we have gained today, we wish you would attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.